Okay, we are at Jarrell Cove State Park on Harstine Island, and I'm going to test out the underwater camera pole. What the underwater camera pole is it is a leg salvaged from a broken tripod, a telescoping leg that I have fit a homemade bracket on to put the underwater camera on for photographing out of a kayak. It's easier to use the state park pier than it is to go all the trouble to put a boat in the water for this initial test. Here we are into the pier. There's a blue perch, the big black one. Shiner perch all over the place. These little guys are about full grown. They're not a big species. Interesting fish. They're a placental fish. They give birth to live young, just like a mammal. But once the kids are out, why, they're totally on their own. They look pretty good so far. Since this initial test, I have changed the angle of the end on the bracket to make it a little bit easier to work with. You used to see these all over the Sound, but they've become scarce anymore, just like everything else. I'm kind of glad to see at least a few down in this area. The camera pole, when used out of the kayak, will allow me to reach approximately as much as possibly 5 feet under the surface to take pictures with the GoPro camera in its waterproof case. Kind of looking at the underside of the pier, some tube worms there, and a big jellyfish. Pretty cool, and this is just off of the State Park Pier. Aiming this thing is an inexact science, and like I say, I have adjusted the angle on the bracket on the end of the pole to make that somewhat easier. Now here on the outside of the pier, you have tube worms. These things with the red pom-poms on top are actually worms. They build up a long leathery tube and their top sticks out with all the feathery tentacles on it like a sea anemone. They can be quite abundant in some areas. Lots of them here, that's for sure. But they're not a sea anemone, they are actually a worm. We're looking at the underside of the float pier. So far this test is looking pretty good. I think this thing has some potential. If the darn weather would ever calm down, the water would get calm, I would like to go out and try it in the boat sometime. Get around some of the nice reefs and rocks and stuff that we have around here. Wish I would have had this one when I went to Wyckoff Shoals. There's another potential use for this. This could be used to examine the underside of boats for damage without hiring an expensive scuba diver. Now we're back a second school of little shiner perch. Like I say, these guys only grow to about 3 inches long at the max. But there are 3 other species of perch that grow much bigger and are fine little game fish. They're actually very good eating, found in the Sound. They certainly don't seem to be too afraid of me. Up in Seattle, the Asians used to use little teeny tiny hooks and itty bitty pieces of bait and catch these guys and throw them in the stew off of the piers downtown if you want to eat that stuff off of the piers downtown. It's not too unusual to see a large, or not really large, but juvenile salmon or cutthroat trout or even steelhead zip in there and grab a few of these things. And the usual assortment of starfish clinging to the pilings. I have pictures of the underwater camera pole in my Facebook album called Inventions and Solutions, if you want to take a look at the device I'm doing this with. Now that about concludes our little test. This one actually came out pretty good. I have other things on the drawing board too. Bye-bye from Jarrell Cove State Park. There's that blue perch again. That's just a juvenile, like I said before. They grow to a fair size.